course, it stopped as soon as I was going to scratch my head. Um, Welcome to Open Source Friday. This is a Twitch stream, a weekly Twitch stream where I chat with an open source maintainer or core contributor to talk about their journey in open source and to learn more about their projects. So I don't know if many of y'all know, but it is February, which is Black History Month here in the US. And I think other places. But yes, I know for sure in the in the US. And I figured that because I've done like a Christmas theme stream and a Thanksgiving theme stream and all of that, those types of stuff. I did a Halloween theme stream. Why not do an open source Friday stream for Black History Month? So for all of February, I'm gonna highlight a few maintainers who are Black or contributors who are Black as well. I see people in the chat already, especially from LinkedIn, saying hi from the countries that they're located in. Thank you so much for reaching out. Oh, and then someone just wrote, it's you Black History Month is in October in the UK. Okay, great. So that goes to show my geography knowledge is not there. But I do want to give a warm welcome to Chad Stewart, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad Stewart. I'm a software engineer from Kingston, Jamaica, which should ironically be warm, but it's not all that. Well, I'm also in AC, so it's not all that warm, but yeah.
Wait, what's the temperature? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm curious.
So it probably is around, what is it, 20 something? Let me check my phone. 20 something degrees. So it's cloudy outside. So it's 27 degrees Celsius.
Oh, Celsius. I thought you meant
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. I was like, wow.
That'd be like 70 something. I don't know. I'm terrible at the conversion. Generally, it's like 32, 33. It's usually hot as heck here. And we have a lot of humidity. But it is cooler here, thankfully. It's funny because I do a lot of exercise outside, and then I'll go outside to do some cardio, and the sun will just be staring down at me angrily.
That's what I want. It's cold where I am. But sorry, I totally took you off track.
Oh no, it's no problem. It's no. I mean, to be fair, I set up the kind of hot cold thing, but yeah, I run a project. Well, it's a combination of a project and community. Tech is hiring, mostly out of Twitter. On Twitter, we kind of retweet job seekers and job opportunities, as well as like other information. Like, so say for instance, like somebody will talk about something. Oh, it's raining. That's the reason. Well, it's cloudy outside. But I'm sorry, I got distracted. But say somebody shares some interesting tidbit, I'll also try to add that to Tech is hiring as well. Just add that to the hashtag. And we run a newsletter as well, where it's like a curated list of the week's events. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The open source projects that we have is a bot that does the retweeting, and a website that I am currently updating.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great introduction and summary of yourself and what you do. I've seen people ask what's the topic of today. I think maybe y'all came in late, so just to reiterate, we're highlighting different maintainers, Black maintainers from different open source projects and communities. And today we're talking about a community called Tech is Hiring. I figured that we don't always have to do maybe super technical projects, because open source can be open source of a community or open source documentation and different types of things. So I wanted to highlight Chad's project, Tech is Hiring, because it's made a big impact, especially on platforms like Twitter. So you already explained that Tech is Hiring is well, could you go more into how you would explain it for others?
Okay, yeah. So I guess I'll start by kind of talking about how it came to be. During the pandemic, or well, I think year 2 of the pandemic, 2021, I myself was looking for a job, like a lot of other people, and I was on Twitter for a little bit, so I started deciding to leverage Twitter to try and to enhance my job search. What I noticed is people would post, "Hey, I'm looking for roles," and then they'd get a bunch of retweets. Obviously, I wouldn't know what kind of happened after that, but they'd get a bunch of retweets, effectively a bunch of visibility. So I was doing the same. And what I had noticed for myself and for other people that I had seen, that they would they would they would get some level of kind of, what is it, engagement. They would get different levels of engagement based on their own like network, right? Effectively their own follower count, and how, if they can get like somebody big to retweet them and so on and so forth, right? And so randomly one day I decided, I was like, hey, I asked, is there like a place to put all of these kind of tweets, because it would obviously be difficult to find them. And somebody was like, oh no, and I was like, okay, cool. And somebody reached out and was like, oh, you're gonna do that, right? And I was like, oh, I guess I am now. So, a couple of weeks later, started the hashtag. Weeks after that, I started the bot and the account. And so like the account is a solid reflection of the hashtag on Twitter. So it just pretty much retweets anything with a hashtag. And so like the account is effectively gives visibility to people who either jobs or job seekers, and thankfully the account has a lot of followers. So that's a lot of potential, more eyeballs. And well, I don't want to say it's static, but it just gives people a lot more visibility. And then the newsletter also does that as well. So that's pretty much it. So it's just a place for people to go to see if there's new opportunities, or maybe even new people that they want to meet, and so on and so forth. Let me actually talk about that a little bit as well. So like the primary thing that what I noticed and I really want to encourage is, I really want to encourage, yes, I want to share opportunities, but I really want to share opportunities from people who, like, for instance, if a hiring manager says, hey, I have a job. Yes, the job is there, but now you effectively have access to that hiring manager. You
Yeah.
can reach out to the hiring manager because the person's there,
Yeah.
right? So like, even if it may not necessarily be the hiring manager, you may potentially have an access to that, to somebody significant to that opportunity. And
Yeah.
so while yes, it promotes the jobs, but it also potentially increases your network,
Yeah.
because you can now reach out to the person who is closely aligned to that, or as closely aligned to that as they are. And so that's something I also wanted to real I well, I don't want to say I wanted to, that wasn't necessarily the initial idea, but that's something I'm really pushing towards promoting,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And let me see if I can like contextualize or summarize some of the things. So basically, you started Tech is Hiring because you were on a job search journey of your own, and you saw how valuable social media platforms like Twitter can be in your job search journey, especially when you're trying to find a job in the tech industry, right?
Mhm.
And it was pretty simple. Like just adding a hashtag could connect hiring managers and job seekers with each other, like on a more personal level than just seeing a job post and applying, right? And then in addition to that, you've created a bot so that you're not always manually typing out like tech is hiring the hashtag, so it can automatically tweet it out and people can follow it and they can stay up to date with jobs. And is that like
Yes, I mean, to be fair, I do still kind of manually type out tech is hiring. It's just about the actual retweeting. I don't have to go into like when you go into a hashtag on Twitter, you literally go into the search functionality and
yeah,
and retweet it. Like I don't actually have to retweet jobs, which means that like other people can contribute. Like that's kind of the thing, right? So
yeah,
like other people can contribute without me having to do anything, and that's really what the bot does. And then over time, there was like some kind of misusage of the hashtag where people realized that there was some value there. And so, like I had to add like some administrative like functionality to the bot so that like say for instance somebody's spamming the hashtag, I can do something about that. You
Yeah.
know, it's not elaborate, but it works, and apparently it works well enough. So I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah, honestly, the simpler the better. I did see a good question in the chat, but I'm gonna save it for later so that we can like go through maybe how like we can see a demo or talk about how you're evolving the project or whatever you're planning.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Feel free to share your screen so we can jump into that part.
Ah, yes. So, the main thing I will show, I'm gonna figure out how to share screen again. The main thing I'm going to show is that no, that is not the. I'm sorry, I'm new to this. Now I
That's
added a
okay.
whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, let me look at the. Let me show the Figma. So the
Yeah.
website is so when I started the web, I made a website just so that you know it was easier for people to kind of come across the project.
Yeah.
And I'm going to admit right now my design skills are not the greatest, so I
It's
reached
better
out.
than mine. Like
Well, this is not my design.
oh,
But
I was like, okay, wow.
yeah, no, my design skills are extraordinarily poor. But I reached out to a product designer. So actually, you know what? Let me start with. Do I have this here? Yeah. So I let me start with this. So I don't know. I'm still trying to get better as an engineer, and one of the things that I kind of saw and honestly like doing is kind of writing design documents. So I wrote this
Mm.
whole design document. It's let me actually. It's oh no, that is I was kind of poking around the project. So this is like the README for the project, and a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing is in this README as well. So the Figma is here, the engineering design document is here. This was really just kind of here to so I could kind of share my ideas for the website and get feedback. And obviously, it's for my own kind of like growth as an engineer.
Yeah.
Um, but I wrote this whole kind of design document. This is like my kind of very simplistic like view of the design.
Yeah. These are like the
Um,
wireframes.
right, the wireframe. Thank you very much. The wireframes for the site, which I ended up doing, and I just need to do a little bit better. I needed somebody to make it a little bit. Anyways, let me
Yeah.
go through that. So for the Figma itself, let me actually show what we have. So it's the high fidelity wireframes. This is what I'll be working on for few the next few weeks. Updating this, and I have a bunch of issues that kind of represent the Figma diagram. But it's pretty much just updating it to just make it look a bit more professional.
Yeah.
But I didn't even mention the designer. So the designer who worked on this form with me is Ade in Etemi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I even asked her
It
before, but
looks
she is
great.
the one who did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it looks great.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah, she's the one who did all of these designs. We went over it for over a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But she's the one who did all of this. Initially, it was really just the front page. I kind of wanted to be up. I wanted to be updated because I didn't want to take too much of her time.
Yeah.
And she went and did the front page, the about us page, and just the contact us. Kind of went like she definitely did a lot more than she needed to, and I really appreciated her for that.
That's great.
I have a credits here. I'll show that in a bit, but it's just kind of like making it a little bit more professional. We also have the obviously the mobile design here,
Yeah.
um, and
What's
it's
the
just
search part? Sorry. I see
the
that there's a search bar. Do you search for job titles and then jobs will pop up that you found in Twitter?
So this is an idea that we're playing around with. So we can leverage the Twitter API to potentially search for I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do that yet, but because like the way people tend to like they do say that they have like say I we have a front end engineer role,
Yeah,
right? Some people may say, oh, I have an opportunity, reach out, so it really depends on how the person structures their tweet. But
yeah,
we could use this to search for job roles
yeah,
right now. Like this was something that we were kind of brainstorming, you
yeah,
know. Um, but yeah, so like the primary thing was like really what I initially wanted to do was which is this would be the first like 10 the top not top 10 the first 10 tweets that are currently on the hashtag and potentially even more.
mm,
So this was the primary thing that I wanted the website to be, and then access to the newsletter
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So originally the newsletter that we had was on review, and I had the review. I had pulled the data from review to put on the site, but as
But
you
now
know, for every
review is down.
exactly, it's shut down. So we migrated to Substack, and Substack does not have a public API. So I'm just going to whenever I do the newsletter, it's just going to link to the Substack page. But that's primarily it for now. Like we just kind of have the about us and everything. So I feel like the main value of tech is hiring, like the way I kind of approach tech is hiring, is that the technology kind of serves the community as opposed to like the technology is like the main thing that people are here for, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You
Oh, yeah,
know,
it does. I love it. And I'm curious. So the first of all, the designs are amazing. I'm excited to see it come to life.
thank
And you
you.
said that like you have a couple of open issues. I'm curious, what technologies are you planning to use to continue to build the site out? And how can people contribute? Because I think this project is low hanging fruit for people who are new to open source, because a lot of times you go into an open source project and it's already like super built out, super complicated, um and it's kind of hard to figure out like where do I get started. And I think
Mhm.
because this is in like a revamp stage, people can get an opportunity to contribute to an open source project. So tell us a little bit more about like the technologies you're using to build this out, and like how can they start contributing.
Oh yes, absolutely. So first of all, we'll have technologies used, but yes, really, it's a next application with Tailwind. We're using Chakra UI, though. I tried to kind of set up the project in a way where if we decide to move away from Chakra, we could relatively easily. It's a TypeScript project and Storybook. Let me actually talk about the Storybook
Oh yeah.
a little bit. Um, so it's not the components themselves are not particularly complicated. This is a lot of the components are based off of my original design. So first of all, let me talk about like the way the actual components themselves are structured. So for those who don't know what atomic design is, I think it's Brad Frost. I'm terrible with names, but atomic design was is a design is a way of is an architectural. um I'm so terrible at this, but it's a way to structure front end code bases.
Yeah.
I believe by Brad Frost. It was introduced in 2012, and I had worked on it in a couple of projects, and in a project that I had worked on previously, one of the things that I had kind of noticed is it just made it really easy for people to come in and to add
Mhm.
value to the project without
Yeah.
necessarily having to know too much about the project. So like we have things here like atoms, molecules. Atoms is like the basic stuff, like your your text fields, icons, links. Like let me actually bring back up the Figma so I can give so like this, right? So you would have like a component that's text, and obviously you would send the actual text that you want, but it would do the styling and so on and so forth for you to just kind of, so say for instance you wanted to change the font of the entire page, you could just go to one component and change the font, or a small number of components. And so like these components would be like atoms, and then you would build components that are like molecules. Let me go to back to the design system. You build molecules that that are like just collections of atoms. So like a good example is just like let me see if I can come up with something better, I guess. Yeah, so let's go with like this would be where initially the newsletter would be,
Mm-hmm.
which is just, you know, for this is particularly the background with just some text.
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, like, and then organisms would be like obvious would be, you know, a collection of molecules and atoms. Long story short is I felt like it made the project really approachable, because like generally say organisms would be like the major components of the application, so like the header,
Mm-hmm.
the footer, you know, major components of the application. And it just, one, it allowed you to kind of just put together the application. You just call the components really. In fact, let me give an example of that. So maybe not necessarily pages. Let me actually go into components
Mm-hmm.
and give an example of this. I guess header would be a good, yeah. So you're just really just kind of calling the components, and it just makes it really easy to kind of to go through the code, you
Yeah.
know, and to add to add to add to it without necessarily messing with anything else. And
Mm-hmm.
it just like one of one of the projects that I had worked on, like we had brought on somebody new, and it was a fairly complicated project at the time,
Yeah.
but they didn't need to know too much about what was going on in the code base, and they were still able to add value, and they were able to add value really quickly.
Yeah.
So like I just really like the way to structure the front end code like this.
Yeah,
Let me go.
I've never seen the structure that way in the molecules and organisms. That's a
Yeah.
really interesting approach.
Yes, yes. And let me. Yes, it is Brad Foss, because I actually had just ways of for people to kind of to understand what atomic design is.
Mm,
Um, but you know, it's Tailwind. I one of the things that I like about Tailwind is one of the things I like about Tailwind and how it kind of works with this approach is that, like, one of the things that I'm kind of experimenting with is just kind of keeping the display code, the display code and the business logic separate.
yeah,
And like the way Tailwind, you know, because you put your CSS in the Tailwind classes into
yeah,
the component, you know, it just kind of makes all the stuff that you would need to actually physically display the site in one place, and it
yeah,
just makes everything look really really clean. So I guess I don't need to go into that too much, but yeah, it's pretty much that. And then next, I'm a React developer,
mhm,
and I chose Next mainly for SEO.
mm,
And it just felt really easy to work with, especially if you know a little bit of React, like to kind of go to the next level to use the next level, the next level to use Next.
yeah,
It just was a simple jump to me. Obviously I showed Storybook. A part of I let me not get into that, but everything else I would so Axios was a part of the API layer, which is something that I need to change.
mm,
And PostHog is on a project I used on, or that was used on another project that I was leveraging that I was on, that does what is it? It's like it gives you kind of data on like page views and stuff like that. How many
really,
people
I've
kind of
never
come to
used
the page?
Posthog
What was
before.
that?
I said I've never used Posthog before, so that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It was something as like, so like as the site gets bigger, as the site gets more traffic, it was just something that I I could, it just like gives data on all of that stuff.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think the technologies you're using are pretty um like not they're fairly common, so people could probably jump in. Or
yeah.
like how you said with Next.js, like a lot of people have used React, and Next.js is just React with like an easier way to do routing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if so just to people in the comments, they asked me to paste the link in the chat. I cannot do that. GitHub has a limitation where if I paste the link, you'll just see asterisks instead, or stars. So I did put the link on the screen. So if you wanted to check out this repo and start contributing, Chad will tell us more details. But the URL is github.com/tech is hiring/tech is hiring dash website.
Yeah. So let me talk about some of the open issues that we have. A lot of them are really just kind of building up the components from the Figma. Like one of the things I'd mentioned earlier about removing Axia. So like we have an API layer. I can actually let me see if I. Well, yeah, we have an API layer. Actually, you know what? Let me actually talk about it a little bit. So, so where did I put it? API. Yes. So yeah, we have like an API layer which I'd gotten from, what is it? I'm trying to remember. I think it's Thomas Finley. He had like a I'd attended one of his like like you know
Like webinars or something?
yes,
I don't know.
yes, a webinar. Thank you so
I'm
much.
like,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
No, but yeah, I
I
attended one of
completely
his
understand.
webinars.
I'm also like suffering from a post concussion, so I'm like my brain is not moving as fast either.
Oh
It's all
wow,
good.
I'm sorry to hear about that. Yeah,
Okay.
like, but yeah, like I attended one of his webinars, and I really like the way he kind of structured his API, the idea of an API layer, and so
Yeah.
implemented something like that. And I used Axios. That's one of the things that he used in his example,
Yeah.
and so I did something like that as well. But I need to like, so let me actually show. So, well, we have like, let me not get into that. I have no idea how to to talk about all of these. There's so much here,
We
but it's
we don't have to go super in depth. We can just
right.
talk about like what would people do to get started to contribute to your project? Like should they go to the contributing guidelines first, or is there any like suggested issues that you think might be like an easy good first issue for people? Like should they look for any tags? Like we can talk about that.
Yes. So we do have a few good first issues. Like
Mhm.
for instance, the header component, like updating the header component, is not particularly. At least I don't think it's particularly difficult, which is really weird because it's like I know that's a huge issue in open source,
Yeah.
where like what you think is not difficult may be difficult for other people.
Yeah. There's a
So
relativity in like ease of use. But I think like the label good first issue, at least I think you've done this well, and I know that B Ducky does it well as well, is that like maybe it's not necessarily easy, but you don't need in-depth legacy knowledge of that open source project to get started.
right. Yes, that was kind of definitely my thought process as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, I like it. I don't think it would take too much to update the header component.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of these new issues are just really just adding components or updating components. Like there is a question of like functionality, but for the most part, it's just getting the components on screen.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people could kind of jump in and mess around because they don't necessarily need to know about how, like, say for instance, um for like an about screen, you don't need to know anything about, oh, is it sending data to somewhere or leveraging data or anything like that. It's mostly just
Styling and
right, it's mostly just styling. And so thank you so much. Yeah. So pretty much a lot of these are pretty open. Also, we don't really have a test suite, and so there is this issue here to add vtest.
Mhm.
and React library and Cypress, React testing library and Cypress. And so this is also a great first issue to kind of pop in. So generally, the way I have like a lot of these component issues structured is just kind of just images of the components themselves, and then a link to the Figma where the component directly is. And yeah, you can just kind of get at it. I do not know why Figma is taking forever to load. Let's not even worry about that. But
But it's all
yeah,
good. It makes sense. They can see an issue. It should have the designs, like what you want to happen, the design, the link to the designs in Figma. I really
right,
like Figma because sometimes it has the CSS suggestions.
right.
Even though like you're using Tailwind, you can probably like look at the differences and transfer it over there.
Right.
And then how do they assign themselves? Do they just say, "Hey, I want to take this issue," and then you'll assign it?
Yes, yes, definitely. So I'm fairly new to the kind of open source world, so this is very much a learning experience for me
Mm, yeah.
as well. But definitely, you can just kind of jump in. Definitely assign yourself to an issue, and you're off to the races, right? So that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I'm excited to I was excited to chat with you as a more newer open source maintainer because a lot of times I do bring on like more, what's it called? More
Experience.
seasons,
Mhm.
maintainers, I guess, and then it's just good to hear about like the starting processes of it all. Especially like for me right now, I'm trying to start doing an open source project too, like maintaining one. So it's just really interesting to hear from the perspective of someone starting off and being like, here's how I thought about the project, here's the design requirements I made, here's how I decided on the technologies that I'm using. So I think this was good for other people to see if they wanted to be able to start their own project. But then also, if you want to contribute, this is like really, really low hanging fruit. Um, I only have one other like technical question, and then I'll
Mhm.
move into some others. Is like, are there any like particular GitHub tools that you use to develop this? Like, are you not there yet? Like,
So I would say I have a GitHub action. So for the storybook,
mm,
for storybook, it's currently on online. You can view the components that exist there. And
mhm,
so let me go back to the um pretty much whenever there is a merge to dev,
mhm.
um and there will be a GitHub action that will pretty much rebuild the storybook instance with
Oh,
the
cool,
new
cool.
stories, and then automatically deploy that to Vercel, which is where the site is being
Oh,
hosted. And so that's what I'm leveraging right now.
that's
Um, right?
cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool GitHub action to have the every time you merge, have it update Storybook so you don't have to manually update Storybook yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I was saying, yeah, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, like when I was, during kind of one of the projects that I was working on, we had a storybook instance, and I just found it ridiculously useful
Mhm,
to be able to pop online and just kind of view storybook. You don't necessarily have to spin it up locally. Sometimes you would, because that was like a part of my process as well, which
mm,
is like to build it in. People would leverage storybook as like a way to isolate the component from the rest of the project, so that it's just easier to kind of put together.
yeah,
But I just found it really, really useful to be like, okay, I just need to know which component I want to leverage, and just kind of go in there, go and just kind of go through the list that we have. And obviously for like other people, it's also a good way to kind of see, oh, this is what they have,
mm,
what this project has. So like, I just felt it was useful, pretty useful to
yeah,
have, other than just something you just have to spin up locally. It's just, I guess my kind of philosophy. Again, I'm pretty new to this, but my philosophy is just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to contribute. You
yeah.
know, and for like, you say for instance, I go away for like even a couple of days,
Yeah.
like a interesting story about the API layer. So in the API layer, I have a bunch of examples of how to work with it.
Mhm.
Um, just to, because again, I wanted it to be as easy as possible for somebody to come in and contribute. And it's not like they don't have, I don't want to say that they don't have to ask a lot of questions,
Yeah.
but it's, it's because it's uncomfortable, right? Like it's uncomfortable learning and getting, just just understanding something. And so I have a bunch of examples here to leverage the API layer, and like I ended up having to write some stuff. I had to go get data eventually for the to use the review API, and I ended up forgetting what I had written for the API layer, and I was like, oh, I'm just kind of happy I have all of these things here,
So
But
it's not only helpful for other contributors, it's helpful for you too. And then I
yeah,
like what you said about like making it easy for people to be able to contribute. Because I know a lot of open source maintainers are like, it is so hard to maintain a project. They feel like they can never really be off. But it's good to start with thinking about like, how am I going to make this so that people can contribute without needing me at all times? Like I'm still happy to help, but how can they contribute without needing me? All right, cool. This was, I think other people are also saying like they followed you on, I don't know, maybe Twitter or GitHub. Oh no, someone said just followed you on GitHub. Um so it looks like people are liking the project. Morgan said, or Morgana said, Figment is like magic. And I think people are liking the idea that one, you've created this project to help people find tech jobs, and then two, it's also um a nice easy way for people to contribute to an open source project for the first time. I want to transition into a few other questions that are less about the project. So maybe yeah, cool, you already stopped sharing. All right. My first question to you is, and I'm gonna switch it up on you a little bit, Chad. Sorry, I might not go in the exact order, but in light of Black History Month, I've just been thinking about how hard it was for me to even find Black maintainers to come on the project. And like I think it's really obvious that there's a lack of diversity in open source communities. From your perspective, like, do you have any thoughts on how we can like improve this?
so so the way I tend to think about this type of stuff, funny, I kind of thought about this earlier,
Yeah.
and I would say the main thing is really information,
Hmm.
right? Like how, even kind of knowing that open source is an avenue of to leverage,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? To leverage as a maintainer to put your project out there for people
Yeah.
to contribute to, and as a contributor.
Yeah.
And so just kind of, it's not even necessarily the information, because the information exists, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're
It's just
here.
like awareness or more
Exactly.
efficacy. Yep. Yeah.
Exactly, and especially awareness in the sense of how is it easy for new people, brand new people, to find to find open source projects by black maintainers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And contribute.
Like, and that we just don't really have that. I
Yeah.
mean, even open source in general, like I feel like that's still an issue. So I'm relatively experienced. I'm not going to pretend that I'm the most experienced, but
You
I'm
do a lot
relatively.
in open source. Like I know this is like your first project you're maintaining
Mhm.
maybe, but like you've done a lot as a contributor.
Right, right. But like even then, like it's still difficult for me just generally, and I feel like I find like a lot of the, or I don't want to say I find, but it feels like a lot of the time for you to get good at open source in general is just to have that community behind you. And so it could be just kind of having like a community of black maintainers and contributors, and then making that community easily accessible, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's like how, just having a easy way of finding them.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would think. So the way I tend to, and it's even where I approach tech is hiring as well.
Mm.
It's how easy it is to find the information, because a lot of the times it's like the information is out there, but you can't come across it. Like you
Yeah.
have to, somebody has to randomly
Search for it.
point
Yeah.
you to the direction, and so, and like that's kind of the primary thing about tech is hiring, is making it more easily accessible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if we were to do something similar, where we do promote black maintainers, but like just making it like something where it's like there's like a list that is just like I can Google it, or just some place for people to go. You know,
Yeah.
that's like the first thing that kind of comes to mind. That's how I would approach it initially.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there's many sides to it, right? Like there's the there's like maintainers needing to make the projects more accessible. There's maybe even like companies like GitHub helping to um inform, like I guess that's my job to do, to inform maintainers on how to make it more accessible, and then and why that's important and significant. And then also there are contributors and maintainers who are black that currently exist, and we just need to highlight and bring more awareness to them, so then other black people could see like, oh shoot, like maybe this open source thing is something that I should get into. So there's like multiple different factors, and I think I really do agree with you on the making it just more accessible for people to jump in, because I think it took me a while to start contributing to open source, because I just didn't really understand where I was supposed to start. It's not that I didn't want to, it's just that it was hard to start. And then we got a really good comment here that says, I think the most important thing about communities is we have to make it as we have to make it all as accessible as we can. So many people here in Brazil don't have access to the internet or other stuff, mainly minorities. Yeah, yeah.
Agreed, 100%, 100%. Same thing in Jamaica. Like it's especially internet. Like there's just some places. I knew a developer who they lived in, I think it's St. Catherine. That's like outside of the main city. There's a parish outside the main city. Anyways, they were constantly having internet issues, and it's just like that. Just that alone could be like such a huge thing, just giving them like reasonable access to the internet. It's,
Yeah.
I guess I just empathize with that a lot.
No, I
100%.
agree. Yeah, like I guess, I mean, I am from the Caribbean, but I lived in America most of my life. So I've had this privilege of having internet, and I didn't even realize I was helping to design a curriculum for like you know how colleges sometimes teach at like do college courses at prisons. So I was helping to design a curriculum for that, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't use internet at all." And then I realized how many things are limited. I mean, yes, they can learn through a textbook, but I'm like, wow, it's just not as dynamic and fun. We do have a question here, and I hope you won't mind me asking it. I had someone else ask a similar question, um, and they said, with the API changes at Twitter, what's going to happen to the bot? Also, hello from Canada.
Hey, from Canada. Yeah. That is actually a very interesting question. It's funny, we had would spoken about coming about me coming on, and that was very excited. And then yesterday, a certain billionaire decided that free access to to the Twitter API, can't have that anymore. Too many bots, nah, you know what I mean? And so, of course, at the time there wasn't very much information, but I started like weighing all my options, right? So like initially, well, still it's still this way. I have no problem paying for it or trying to pay for it.
Mhm.
I was hoping that it would be something at least relatively reasonable. I'm not necessarily employed, so like I don't necessarily have income, from this. And I was like, okay, if it's reasonable enough, I'm already paying to host a bot that's fine. Unfortunately, Heroku disappeared. So like I went to DigitalOcean. But what was it? Like there was a tweet recently where Elon had mentioned a potential price range, and he was saying like approximately $100, and that's like definitely out of. I don't want to say definitely, but it's definitely a stretch for my current budget. And
Mm.
so now I'm kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to raise the money. Like, for the most part, like Tech is Hiring has been relatively cheap to run, which I was absolutely thankful for. And it's just now with all of these changes, is like it's obviously not cheap to run anymore. So now I have to go figure out like where I'm going to raise the money to just kind of keep it up. Like,
Yeah.
but I guess to answer the question, I am very much willing to pay for it. And thankfully, like the actual $100 itself is not so much out of my monthly budget that I can't afford it, but it's not sustainable for me.
Yeah.
So it's just about figuring out how to get some level of funding for Tech is Hiring in the future. I guess I do have a few months of runway before that bill starts becoming a serious dent in my wallet. But that's really it. Like, funny enough, that was something I was going to talk about later on in the stream, is just figuring out how to get funding for the project at this point.
Yeah. Do you already have a GitHub sponsors profile?
I do not. I do need to set that up.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe since you're this is an open source project that you have,
Mhm.
set up a GitHub sponsors profile, and people can sponsor you monthly to be able to continue to keep the project going. And that brings me to like another reason why it's hard to be a Black maintainer is because we historically don't have as much generational wealth or income as other maintainers. So it's going to be hard to be able to like invest our time into maintaining an open source project when we really need to invest our time into the jobs that bring us money. Um, but yeah, like definitely set up a GitHub sponsors profile and I'll try to support. I did not know that was the price because I have a couple of demos with Twitter's API, but looks like
I'm not gonna lie. I literally came up. So I was in a Twitter space and we were talking about it, because obviously all of this is completely new and they haven't officially announced anything. And somebody had just sent me a tweet like earlier, and I'm just sad faced when I saw it, because like I'm sitting here like, okay, $20, $50, even $50, I'll deal with that. And then I saw the tweet is like, yo, it may be approximately $100, and approximately is not like it is or is it? It could very well be like
yeah.
125. I was just like, great.
You're like, what? What do I do? Oh, and then one last question before I go to like the more fun questions that are like, what's your favorite Beyonce song? Someone said, just quickly, is it possible to help monthly in GitHub sponsors page? What do you mean? Do you mean that so the way GitHub sponsors is set up is that you could have different tiers and options. So you can give your sponsors the option to give you $5 a month or $10 a month or $25 a month, or you can give them the option to do a one-time payment. So if they didn't want to commit or didn't have the funds to commit or whatever, they can say, for this moment in time, I just want to send you $25. I hope that like makes sense. And you can also like set like the goal that you have of like every month I need to make. I've seen a project do this, say like every month they need to make $25,000 or $12,000 because they have X amount of maintainers, and those maintainers depend on that as their salary, so they need to be able to like pay it out to each of them. Cool. It made sense. All right. So my last question to you is, do you have any advice for, so you run Tech is Hiring and you live in Jamaica, but I have seen you land jobs or contract work outside of Jamaica in America or other places, right? I'm wondering if you have any advice for folks who um they're not in America, they're software engineers, but they're struggling to land a job. Should they use the tech is hiring hashtag? Should they be leveraging social media? Like, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that they should not use the tech is hiring hashtag or social media at all. I don't even know why. No, but yeah, yes, yes. So the main thing, and this is kind of like how I've been thinking about this is like the most important thing, and it's to be quite honest, it amazes me how valuable it is. But it's your network, right? Like the idea of tech is hiring, like tech is hiring has value, but the main value is the community, is the people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so it's absolutely about building your network, like so one of the things that I would push for people who want to contribute to open source is you want to contribute to open source obviously to build your skills, to obviously contribute, the actual work, but also to get to know the maintainers and
Yeah.
potentially other contributors as well, because those people may potentially be your employers, they may potentially be your co-workers,
Yeah.
they could be your mentors, mentees, like having a strong network, and to be honest, I would say that's one of going back to kind of like the question of black men and just being black and interfacing with open source in general.
Yeah.
um One of the big things is that community or lack thereof, or like a community that has all of this information. Build your network.
Yeah. Oh, you froze for me.
A community.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah, are
um,
you can you see me?
oh, now you're back. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Internet, Jamaican
No
internet.
worries. Well, we see,
um,
well, we see proof of like the struggle of Wi-Fi and internet.
oh yeah, yeah. I need to go. Like, anyways, I don't want to get into that, but yeah. Build your network. Join communities. Be around people as best as your personality
Yeah.
will allow. Like it is ridiculous how much you can learn. I was having a conversation. Well, I was in a Twitter space. They were talking about like how they kind of learn as an engineer, and one of the things that they were talking about is just building a community
Yeah.
of people, that of experienced people that they trust, that if they have a problem they can reach out to, you
Yeah.
know and so like this is for jobs as well. You know what I mean? Like the best way to get a job is through referrals.
Yeah.
And the way you get referrals is having somebody actually know you and have actual relationships
Yeah.
with people. And so like, and I'm not going to say it's easy. Like, to be honest, whenever people talk about networking and building your network, they always talk about you want to build your network long before you need it, and like new people, they need it now, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the thing that it's like the best thing. To be honest with you, it's so versatile, just having a good set of people to be able to reach out to whenever you have issues.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't want to have like superficial relationships, like say you don't want to have like 500 people on LinkedIn but they don't know you at all.
Yeah.
You want to have like really deep, well, I don't want to say really deep, but you want to have relationships, strong relationships with a group of people. And then it's like, you have those strong relationships with people locally, like have strong relationships with people on Twitter. It's all about relationships. Like your career will skyrocket, by having these strong relationships,
Yeah.
and that's what I would advocate for. To be honest with you, that is the basis of tech is hiring, is an attempt to just make it easier for people to build these relationships, obviously under the idea of trying to get a job, but
Yeah.
is to build relationships. So that's the suggestion that I would give.
I completely agree with that sentiment. Um, we have a comment that says communities are like everything to me. Join communities can change our lives. I love this. And I think like I agree with you. I always tell people that like you can be the best software engineer in the world, but if nobody knows that you are, it's going to be hard for them to vouch for you or to um like refer you for a job. So it's good to like build those relationships, and when someone's like, "Oh, who should I hire?" you'll think come to mind and be like, "Oh, I've worked with Chad on an open source project before, or I've seen them tweet about like a problem they were having with a technical like thing and how they were able to solve it." So I think that's like really great. We have two questions and I think I'm going to like quickly answer them and then switch into the non-technical ones. Sorry I keep saying that, but the chat just keeps having like good thoughts. So someone said how to attract investors on GitHub. I don't know necessarily about investors, but I know more on the open source side about sponsors. I think one good way is to make sure like your repository is clear on what's happening, right? Like, what is the project about? Who's been contributing? What technologies does it use? And like how people can contribute, whatever. Like all the stats needed can help people like if they're not like to be able to understand what your project is and its value without them having to like dig into the code, like have that in your readme, have that in a contributing guidelines, have that in a code of conduct, and then in your GitHub sponsors profile, which is like a tool that GitHub has created to help maintainers gain access to people who want to continue to fund and sponsor their work. Put out your introduction and explain who you are, why you're passionate about the project. Talk about other projects that you've developed. Because what you want is for people to be able to see, like, do I want to sponsor this person? And once they read it and they're like, oh yeah, this person's doing great work, I can see that they're passionate. But sometimes people like developers don't always want to like advertise or market themselves because they feel nervous. If it's just a blank page, people are not going to contribute or sponsor you because they're like, who is this, what are they doing, why does this exist? So try to help answer those questions to help people feel interested and invested in you. And then somebody asked, Mastodon, are you on it? I don't know if Chad is. Chad, are you on it?
I'm not. I need to. I'm just super lazy. I haven't
Too
put
many social
anything.
media profiles.
Oh yeah. So social media overload. It's just like, nope, I'm just sticking here.
I have a Mastodon, and at first I was a little apprehensive about it. I do think what you said here, it is great for me to connect with other open source maintainers and stuff like that. I feel like I'm able to get a chance to hear their thoughts and talk to them a bit more than I was on Twitter. But I like the balance between the two. Um, okay. Now I'm going to transition into like the non-open source fun questions that I usually do near the end of the stream. First one is, what was the first programming language that you've ever learned?
uh, QBasic. It's kind of. I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. Funny enough, so I went to a summer camp way back in the day in the 90s, and like I actually think the I went to a church, and I think I could literally drive to the church. I think the room that I was in that I learned QBasic in is still there,
Wow.
but it was QBasic. I particularly remember it because it was something that you would run in DOS, and it was big big blue screen with like a yellow cursor. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
QBasic. It's the thing that I remember. It's funny. I learned that, and then I learned how to type on Mario Teaches Typing.
I love it. I love it. I wonder if other people in the chat have learned QBasic. I think I'm too young. I was still a baby in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm not that great. I don't even remember it. I just remember, like, literally, I just remember the editor. It was like, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. My next question is, if money wasn't an issue, how would you ideally spend your time?
To be quite honest, I think I would still be doing stuff like this. To be
Yeah.
quite honest with you, I really love engineering. Really love like the just kind of working on projects and stuff like that. And I really like engaging with people in this space. Like that's the reason why I'm still here. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I think if money was what I would say is I would preferably like to be, so I think my environment would change, if that makes any sense, like
Mhm.
where I am located physically, but I think the work that I would be doing would be relatively the same. You know what I mean? But yeah.
That's great. No, I love that you would still be doing like you're doing what you love and like that's engineering, that's connecting communities. That's awesome. Someone commented about their first language. I don't even know this one. MSX Basic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm not. I know there's like a lot of forms of basic because I was like, well, not again, but I was looking for. I was trying to remember because literally the only thing I remembered about QBasic was the editor, and I was just like looking for the codes to try to remember. And I saw a lot of like different versions of basic, and I was just like, wow, you know what I mean? And I didn't even like I didn't kind of delve into it too long,
Yeah,
but I just remember
that's
doing
really
code there. Like that was like my first coding experience a long time ago. A long time ago, I was like a little kid.
that's
Long time
awesome
ago.
that you got exposed to it as a kid. Cause that's not at least for me it wasn't common. Like I didn't learn about coding until like after I was 18 at least.
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. I was gonna. Well, this I probably know the answer to this, but I want to see what's a dream open source project that you would create one day. Is it tech is hiring, or there's a different one that you're like,
Nah, literally it'd be
this?
this. And it's not even just so it's weird because I mentioned it earlier in the stream, but it's not only about the technologies, it's about the community, and the technology serves the community, right? So it's like if you were to take away the entire all of the all the stuff that I've done, all the code that I've written, which it's not massive, but if you were to take away all of that, there's so much more value in just the collection of people.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And like for me, the big thing that I would like to for Tech is Hiring to do eventually is, because I think there's a massive gap between learning how to code, becoming proficient at coding, and
yeah,
getting a job. You
yeah,
know what I mean? For a lot of people, and so I would like to fill that gap in a way that is scalable and meets everybody's needs, so that again you can just kind of hop off the street and like, because a lot of the issues about getting a job is lack of information, how
yeah,
to build a resume, who do you talk to, you know what I mean? And so just putting together just some space where it makes that really easy, because we have like the space to learn how to code with free code camp. You can go from zero to know how to code very easily, but it's really hard from know how to code to be employed. It's the problem to solve, and it's like once you become senior, you generally have a large enough network where it's still a problem for you, but it's not nearly as difficult. Like you have the experience, you have the experience, you have the knowledge, and you have the people that can help you. But for newer people, they don't have any of that. They're not equipped, and then they don't have like strong resumes. They don't know how to build LinkedIn, stuff like that. So it's just like putting to making Tech is Hiring that, just a good way to come in and educate yourself well enough to make the job search easier, and then to promote the job search as a relationship building experience, rather than you go to a career page and you click apply and then you hope for the best, right?
yeah.
So I guess long story short, you had my number, but yeah.
I love it. No, this is perfect. Okay, I'm gonna end on this question. How do you pronounce the word? I don't want to give away the way I pronounce it. GIF.
Oh yeah. Um, so I personally say GIF,
Okay.
but I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think about it at all. I think so a lot of like words that I pronounce, like it's just the first way I heard it pronounced. So I just like, okay, cool, and then So like I know there's like people who will shout from the hills. It's like, oh, it's pronounced GIF or GIF or I don't know, and I'm just like, do you understand what I'm talking about when I say these when I
Yeah,
make these sounds? It's like, yes. I was like, cool. That's my relationship to the word. It's not that serious.
awesome. So you're not that's awesome. I love that you're neutral. You're not like married to like it has to be GIF or GIF because there's always a very visceral reaction when I bring people on the stream and I'm like, I say GIF and they're like, that is not how you say it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I am
Awesome.
100% indifferent. I'm just like, "Yeah, that's you. I'm cool."
Is there any places people should follow or connect with you? I'm gonna re-highlight the GitHub repository if people want to make their first contribution to Tech is Hiring. If you're just joining in, this is a project that Chad has had for a while, or a community where he's been connecting um, developers and other technologists with hiring managers through social media platforms. And he's rebuilding the website with tools like Next.js and Tailwind. So I think this is a great way for you to get your first like opportunity or your first contribution to open source, or become more of a core contributor in a project and build up your resume that way. But also, do you have any other places that you want people to follow you on besides the repo and on GitHub?
Yeah. So Tech is Hiring is mainly on Twitter. Like that's where I would say you would gain the most value from the community currently. So Tech is Hiring is literally that. Tech is Hiring on Twitter. I am on Twitter as well. LinkedIn.com/ Chad R Stewart. Chad underscore R underscore Stewart.
Mhm.
Um, so like the way I kind of engage with Tech is Hiring is I ask people if they mind if I post on Tech is Hiring, and I feel like a lot of people follow me mainly because eventually, in fact, I am probably going to do that right after this stream. A lot of people kind of follow me because I ask a bunch of people. It's like you can see that as well. But I'm there, I post silly things. I tell dad jokes. I try to be funny. Um, there, there's also linked on LinkedIn, LinkedIn.com/ what in/ Chad R Stewart.
Yeah.
I try to be engaged on LinkedIn as well. Tech is Hiring is also on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It's not as valuable there. I try to post things. The hashtag is also on LinkedIn. I don't engage with the hashtag as much on LinkedIn. I really should,
Yeah.
but I don't. But you can follow on LinkedIn as well. And then there's the newsletter. I believe the newsletter link would be techishiring.substack.com.
Okay.
I believe, but the newsletter is on Substack. You can sign up for the newsletter. Every week, I just kind of do a curated list of the week's tweets,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's it that I can think of currently.
Awesome. Awesome. So it sounds like you're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and, like both you and Tech is
Tech
High
is hard.
are on Twitter and LinkedIn, and then also the newsletters on Substack. Thank you so much for coming on this Twitch stream. I think we had a great conversation about like starting out as a maintainer and planning out like your software design and the technologies, how people can contribute, what is hiring is all about, and increasing diversity in open source overall. Um, and I really enjoyed the conversations we had with people in the audience and with you as well. So thank you all for being interactive and engaged. But that is all for today. I will see you all next Friday. Bye.
Thanks for having me.